When you think of The Witcher, what do you think of? Is it a badass swordsman that also uses magic to defeat enemies? That's sort of what I think of. I'm sure many people will think of Henry Cavill, but in general, when you think about making a Witcher in Baldur's Gate 3, I think there is one subclass, the Eldritch Knight, that fits that motif perfectly. Today's build is one that you can make pretty early in Act 2. It goes up to level 8, and it does some incredible damage, and it feels really fun to play. For your race, honestly pick whatever you want. However, high elves with the extra cantrip have an additional bonus for this build, and I personally like wood elves for the increased movement as well. So naturally at level 1 as a fighter, since you will be a fighter from level 1 to 8, you get to choose a fighting style. For this setup, we are going with a two-hander. However, if you'd prefer to use sword and board, you're more than welcome to. Defense is an overall great trait. It's just +1 AC regardless of what type of weapon you actually use. Great weapon fighting is great for using two-handers because it will essentially re-roll the dice if you were to roll low. However, one thing to keep in mind, if you don't roll a 1 or a 2 when attacking with your two-handed weapon, this feature right here is completely wasted, which is why defense overall may be better. It's going to be up to you on what you prefer. I found this build to be really fun with one-handers and a shield as well. So if you plan to kind of change weapons on the fly, defense may be the better choice. However, if you're going all in on great weapon fighting and you want big damage with two-handers, you may want to use that. Looking at your ability scores, this can change. There is a helmet you can use that will put your intelligence up to 17 base regardless of your intelligence at level 1 creation. If you use that helmet that you get in Act 1, this is the type of spread you may want to do. The reason I have 15 constitution is because with the hag's hair I get up to 16. However, if you want to be pure damage, you may want to use the hag's hair at 17 right here to get up to 18 right away. It's up to you. If you plan to not use the intelligence headpiece, one thing you may want to do is drop points in charisma and bump this up to 16 ASAP, and you would have something looking like that. For this character personally though, because I do use the hag's hair for constitution to get my HP up a little bit more, and I do plan to use the intelligence headpiece until late game, this is the type of setup I have. So feel free to choose what you want, but keep in mind you do need intelligence for your spells. At level 2 fighter, you get action surge. Everyone by now should know how great this is. You pop this and you get another action to use during combat. The versatility of that is phenomenal, and it's why a lot of people use 2 points in the fighter when they multi-class. Okay, so level 3 fighter is when you finally unlock the Eldritch Knight subclass. You gain the ability to have weapon bond. So essentially every long rest, use weapon bond as an action, and the weapon that you have bonded to you will always be with you. You can throw it, it will automatically come back, and you can't drop it. So if someone goes to use like the overheat spell on you, your weapon, you won't drop it. It's really nice. Like you are tied with your weapon. So it's a nice little tidbit. I mean, if you don't plan to throw your weapon, really it's useless. It's more so for, I guess, theme, but it is nice to have if you do have the chance to throw it and happen to choose Tavern Brawler, you don't have to. Okay, so your cantrips, this is when things get really fun because if you chose a high elf, you already have an extra cantrip. I personally like wood elves for the extra movement. Looking here, there are some cantrips that I think for sure you're going to take. One of them is Blade Ward. Blade Ward is huge. For 2 turns, you take 50% damage from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks. That's pretty much all physical damage in the game. So you pop this for 2 turns. It's essentially like having the rage benefit. When you rage as a barbarian, you take 50% damage from physical attacks. Well, this is what Blade Ward does, so it's really nice to have. And it's a cantrip, so it doesn't cost any spell slots. Your other cantrips I personally think you would want to use is either going to be Ray of Frost or Firebolt. Either of these two I think are really good. You could use Acid Splash as well, but I don't think it's that great. I think these two are better. There is a specific ring that Ray of Frost will interact with later in the build. So for this, I would say go Ray of Frost. Spell wise, pick whatever you want. I think the number 1 spell for sure is going to be Shield. This thing is amazing. As a reaction, you use a level 1 spell slot, and it increases your AC by 5, pretty much making sure the enemy probably doesn't hit you. Other spells are going to be up to you. I think Burning Hands is really nice, and it kind of fits the Witcher theme since they do have the ability to sign with like the fire magic. Thunderwave is also really useful, that way you can knock enemies back. Pick whichever you think is going to be more useful to your party. Magic Missiles is good, but based on some gear we're going to use, this will not interact with gear. You definitely want something that has an element. And you get an expanded slot from your spells from the wizard class. Pick whatever you want. Ice Knife is really good. Tasha's Hideous Laughter for CC is also really great. Pick whatever you think is going to be useful to your party. Okay, so at level 4 you get to pick another spell. Pick whatever you didn't have before. There is Witch Bolt, but I don't like that as a concentration spell, so I don't prefer to use it. I do think Thunderwave would be better for the knockback. You get to pick your first feat here at level 4. If you use the Hag's Hair to increase your strength, at this moment you could get it up to 20. I personally can't because I have it on Constitution for this character, making it 16. So you have some options on what you would like to do here. You could go just double point in, get it up to 19. It's really going to be up to you on what you want to do. I'm actually going to put 2 points into strength to get it up to 19, and we'll talk about why in a moment. Fighter level 5, you get your extra attack, so when you attack in combat, you can attack again. If you wanted to replace a spell at this level, you can as well. Fighter level 6 is really nice because fighters are unique that they gain an additional feat at level 6. The only other class to get an additional feat would be a rogue, and they get theirs at level 10. So this is really great because now you could choose ability improvement again if you really wanted to, or you could choose something else. For myself personally, you could go with Athlete right here. This will increase your jump distance by 50%. When you are knocked prone, it takes less movement to get back up, and you get to choose to increase your strength or dexterity by 1. So you could go with that if you wanted to get that up to level 20. You could also go with Tavern Brawler. If you do plan to throw your weapon, especially considering your weapon will automatically come back to your hand because of the packed weapon, Tavern Brawler will double the modifier for the damage as well as the attack rolls. So you could get that as well. It's really going to be up to you on what you want to do here. You can do some pretty crazy things with movement to get up high and throw your weapon and just do some incredible damage with this. It's really going to be up to you. I am actually not going to be taking that. I kind of like having the option to jump really far, and getting 50% increased jump distance while also having a high strength modifier means you can jump super far. So that's what I'm going with at this level. Alright, level 7 is actually going to be the bread and butter for Eldritch Knights. This is when you get the ability War Magic. Essentially, you can cast a cantrip, and afterwards, you can use attack with your weapon as a bonus action. This is really significant because in combat, you can use Blade Ward to basically make yourself more defensive, and then also attack the same turn. When we talk about some of the cantrips that you can use and how they interact with gear, this is going to be really nice because your weapon will also get buffed afterwards. We'll talk about that in a second. Spell-wise, I go with Scorching Ray and with the Acid Arrow here. If you end up using the ring that I talk about later on to make you immune to blind, you may want to go with Darkness, that way you can use it offensively or defensively. It's going to be up to you. So I'm going to actually take Darkness over the arrow, only because I do want to showcase that off in the video. And Fighter level 8 is when we are actually going to end this build, because this is meant to be a mid-game build for Act 2. I saw some people, they were level 6 when they entered Act 2. I saw other people were level 4 to 5, and I even saw someone was level 7 as soon as they entered Act 2. It all depends on how much you do in Act 1 with the Underdark, the Grimforge, and everything else. Some people may be higher, some people may be lower, but no matter what, in Act 2 at some point in time you will be level 8, which is why I want to stop at level 8 because it is meant to be a mid-game build. Here you gain additional spells. Misty Step is a huge, fantastic spell to have. It's a bonus action. You can teleport up to 60 feet. This is really great. Just being able to teleport wherever you want, to get out, to get closer, whatever the situation may be. This is really huge. Invisibility, another fantastic spell. You can cast this on yourself and now you can get out of danger if need be. If you need to sneak past someone, invisibility is fantastic. Hold Person is another great spell because you cast this, assuming you do succeed, the character that is being held, any attack within 3 meters will always crit. That is a lot of damage. It is very, very strong. Of course, you have Cloud of Daggers as well, another great spell. It is a concentration spell, so keep that in mind. But this thing is really fantastic because you basically have area denial. If they walk through it, they take damage. Really, really great. You can also knock people into it with the Thunder Wave spell that we talked about earlier. Pick whatever spell you think is going to be useful here. Because of a pair of boots I am using, I don't necessarily need Misty Step, but if you don't have those boots, you're definitely going to want to use this. For this video, I'm going to go with Hold Person. And you get to choose another feat here. So now you have some options. You could do ability improvement to increase your constitution, charisma, whatever it is, to be even higher. You could go with something else like alert, because you do kind of have a little bit of low not low AC, but like no initiative because your dex is so low. Having +5 initiative would be really nice. This means you're pretty much going to always go at least first or second, really depends, but you'll always go more so compared to others. So alert's really nice to have. Some other great feats might be Lucky. Lucky's really great, another fantastic feat. And if you plan to use a lot of concentration spells, even Warcaster could be great. And then you also get to cast Shocking Grasp as a opportunity attack. That's really good because Shocking Grasp will actually scale with your intelligence modifier thanks to a piece of armor you're going to be wearing. So really it's going to be up to you what you pick here. And if you are using a two-hander, we all know how great Weapon Master is for the extra damage. I mean, +10 damage is pretty huge and significant. So it's whatever you want to pick. Because I do like switching on and off between one-handers and two-handers, I don't always pick this, but for this showcase with a weapon you can get pretty early in Act 2, I am going to go with Great Weapon Master. So we have quite a few different pieces here. The Ring of the Absolute Force, which gives you the Thunderwave spell, and the Nightwalker's Boots, these all come from the same area in the Grimforge. When you go to do the mission with True Soul Nair, he drops these boots for you, and one of the dwarves right there, they will actually give you this ring assuming you kill them. You don't need this ring though if you did take the Thunderwave spell itself. These boots are fantastic though because if you read, it says you cannot be enwebbed, entangled, ensnared, nor can you slip on grease or ice, and this is going to interact with another ring I want to showcase. So we're going to go ahead and replace the Ring of Absolute Force, and we're going to put in something else. I have Ring of Elemental Infusion. The Ring of Elemental Infusion, when you deal acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage using a spell or cantrip, that element infuses your weapon, basically giving your next attack additional 1d4 damage of that element, which is really fantastic because we know with Warcaster you can cast a cantrip and then use an attack as a bonus action. It gets even better because with the Necklace of Elemental Augmentation, whenever you use a cantrip that deals elemental damage, you add your spellcasting modifier to the damage dealt. You can see here I have 17 intelligence, and that's because of my helm. The Warped Headband of Intelligence you can gain really early from those 3 ogres in Act 1. You kill Lump and it gives this right here. The necklace and ring, the element, I guess accessories that you could say, all come from defeating the Githyanki and the Mountain Pass. I will show them on screen. One, you loot from a body. You can technically steal it if need be as well. It is a little challenging to steal though. And the neck piece comes after a boss battle inside the cabinet. If you don't want to use the Eversight ring for blind immunity, which comes from Act 2 inside the morgue inside House of Healing, there is another ring you can get inside Last Lights Inn. You need a perception check for. It's in the cupboard. You'll run past it and the character is going to be like, oh, what's this? and that's going to be the Snowburst ring. The Snowburst ring is actually great because it will make, anytime you do cold damage, create 15 feet circle of ice around that target, and ice has a chance to make the target slip and go prone, and when they're prone, you gain advantage on your attack rolls. Well, in combination with your boots, because you can't slip on ice, you could constantly add a bunch of circles of ice around enemies and be totally safe for yourself while they have chances to slip. So that's another really great ring, and why I chose Ray of Frost over the other cantrips. The back piece comes from Last Light's in vendor, just gives +1 AC, +1 saving throws. The chest piece I'm using is the Flawed Helldusk armor. It comes from Damon, assuming you gave him the Infernal Iron. I like it just because it has the effect to do additional damage when I do get hit. You don't necessarily need this. You could easily use the adamantite stuff you get from Grimforge in Act 1. Preference really up to you. The gloves, you're going to have a few different options for gloves. I like the Flawed Helldusk if I go for additional damage, because it does add additional fire damage. Another option is going to be the gloves of the Automaton. These gloves are pretty challenging to get. You guys remember that gnome inside Act 1 that's on the windmill? You have to actually save him and follow his quest chain to Grimforge. Save him in the Grimforge and have him go to your camp. Eventually he'll end up in Last Light's and you can buy the gloves off of them. These gloves are huge if you're going two-hander, because as a bonus action, you literally become, I guess, like a construct. For 10 turns, you have advantage on all your weapon attack rolls and gain resistance to lightning damage. They're really fantastic. And if you are able to get these gloves and using a two-hander, you definitely want to do that path, because Great Weapon Master gives you -5 to hit. Well, that's pretty much negated when you have advantage. So these gloves are really huge for that. If you're not planning to use a two-hander and go sword and board, then you really don't need these gloves. You can pick whatever you want. There is another set of gloves you can buy from the same vendor that is going to sell the Halberd of Vigilance. Inside Moonrise Towers, you can buy this halberd. This vendor will also sell a pair of gloves that will give you +1d4 to your attack rolls after using Action Surge. However, you do have to talk to the orc first and basically go through some checks to have her unlock the secret weapons and armors from that vendor. This is really great. The weapon itself is really what you need though. I mean, it's a +2 weapon, which is great for your chance to hit. You gain +1 initiative to just initiative, so you're going to attack sooner than later. And if you combine that with alert, you got +6. And you gain advantage on perception ability checks. Really, really great. And whenever you make an opportunity attack, you have the option to do it with advantage. So this thing is just fantastic. And it has +1d force damage on it, which will stack with the element that you get from the Ring of Element Infusion and necklace. So it's a really nice combo. So how does this all come together? Well, there's one other thing I do want to talk about, and that's going to be the Darkfire Shortbow. Assuming you did save Damon from the goblins in Act 1 and he's now in Act 2, you can buy this bow off of him. This will give you fire resistance, cold resistance, which is great because with the gloves I talked about, you'll also have lightning resistance, so that's 3 resistances. On top of having Blade Ward if you need resistance to physical damage, and it gives you the haste spell. So you can cast haste once per long rest as well, which is just fantastic because it will last for 10 turns, unlike the potion that only lasts for a few. But it is a concentration spell, so keep in mind it can break, and if the concentration is broken, you immediately become lethargic. Okay, so I did want to showcase the 2 different options you have for rings, whether you're using the Snowburst ring or the blind immunity. We're going to start with the Snowburst ring because I do find it to be more overall useful because the darkness can affect your allies. So I do want to show here, when I start in combat here, if I were to use Ray of Frost, normally it doesn't put that giant ice puddle around people, but because of my ring, it's going to. So you can see right here, she has the circle of ice around her. So when she moves, she will have a chance to go prone. And if you take a look at the damage, it said I did 15 damage. Well, because of the actual armor pieces that we're using, you gain +3 damage because of my intelligence modifier, which is nice. So to start right here, I could do a couple of things. I could attack again because I did open with a surprise. I could cast Darkness if I needed to. I could cast Blade Ward, whatever it may be. I do want to showcase what would happen if you do use Blade Ward or another spell. So we're going to come up and walk up here. You can see I don't quite have enough movement. That's totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and use my Blade Ward just to give myself a little bit more defenses. But because of Warcaster, I have the option to attack if she was in range. Unfortunately, she's not at the moment, but I could at least attack her with my bow. And you could see it did frost damage right there. Well, because of your infusion, this affects your melee attacks as well as your bow attacks. Even though the bow won't be doing that great a damage, it's still nice to have in case you need it. Okay, in this scenario, I do not have the cold ring on, and instead I put the ring that's going to make me immune to blindness. And I'm going to show the difference on when you open with that versus the other one, and like how great darkness can be for yourself, specifically for offense and defense. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open the way I normally do. I'm just going to cast a spell on her. And you can see, because I don't have that cold ring on, now there is no cold surface around her to slip on. So I'm going to come up. I am going to give myself the advantage on attack rolls from my gloves. And now I'm going to cast a spell. Now, Darkness is a level 2 spell, and you only have 2 spell slots for that, so keep that in mind. But I'm going to cast it right here on myself. They're blinded. I'm not because of my ring. So their chance to hit me is going to be severely low. And anyone outside of it cannot cast spells in it. I could action surge if I wanted to go up and attack, but I'm not going to at the moment. They're all surprised. See, he goes to attack. It can't even come in. So he's just wasting his turn. And that's why the Darkness combo with the blind immunity ring is so huge. The effects of being able to completely stop a ranged character like that is going to be really great late game. So my cold infusion went off because I didn't actually attack, but that's okay because I can do it now on this turn. Or I could use a spell if I wanted. Burning Hands as an AoE, using it on one person I don't think it's going to be worth. So I could simply walk up and just attack a few times to do some damage. I do have my passive on, I do have advantage. Instead, I'm going to use Ray of Frost. Wow, it missed. That's unfortunate. And because it missed, it doesn't apply to my weapon. But I still have the option to use a bonus action to attack. Which it did, and I pretty much one-shot her. So if we take a look, I had the Great Weapon Master plus the force damage. And now I did unlock Great Weapon Master bonus attack because I killed, but I don't want to leave my Darkness because this is defending me at the moment, so I'm going to stay here. And the chances of them hitting me while in the Darkness is going to be so low, it's unreal. You'll almost rarely get hit while inside your own Darkness. So now, with all of them stacked up, I could hit all 3, but I need to get in a better position. So I'm going to jump, and I'm going to show how far my jump is. I have 48 feet to jump. If you take a look at my strength, it's only 20. If I did use my Potion of Everlasting Vigor, this would go up to 22 strength. You get that also from Moonrise Towers. You do need a Starion to bite the lady. So my jump distance is insane. Look how far I can jump because I took that feat. It's a lot. I don't want to jump right now though because it takes a bonus action. So I'm going to come back this way. I'm going to use Burning Hands. It's unfortunate that they did end up being saved, but that's okay. But if you take a look at my weapon, I now have Fire Infusion. I am going to Action Surge. I can now attack from my bonus action. Or I'm sorry, it wasn't a bonus action because I didn't use a cantrip. I'm sorry, if I would have used a cantrip, it would have been a bonus action. But I now have Great Weapon Master bonus because I killed to attack again. And I missed. So even though I do have advantage, you can miss with your Great Weapon Master, so you may want to toggle that on or off. But I think we understand the concept of how great darkness can be, so let's go ahead and take a look at how this fight would play out if I didn't have my darkness set up. Okay, and just like before when I opened, I do have my Snowburst ring on. That's the only difference, everything else is the same, so I am no longer immune to darkness. Because of that, I probably wouldn't have darkness on my bars, I would change that out, but if you do plan to use that darkness spell, you might as well equip the ring. Alright, so it's just like before, I am going to open with my Ray of Frost so I don't use a spell slot. And I actually got a decent roll on that. Did 16 damage, which is not bad, considering I did 2d8 plus my spell modification. They are surprised, so I get to go again. I think I'm just going to use my advantage, and then I'm going to cast Blade Ward so I can get myself defensives up. Now there is one thing I did want to point out that I did not do at the beginning of this fight that you should always do once per long rest. And that's going to be my packed weapon. You can see my weapon bond, I didn't actually use it before the fight. And because of that, my weapon isn't bond to me. So if they use like command person, drop weapon, they use overheat or anything like that, my weapon will drop. So you want to make sure you do have your weapon actually bound to you before you start combat. But with it being my turn, I have a few options I can do here. I say we go for another Ray of Frost and just knock her. And now I have the additional cold infusion on my weapon, so I can come up and attack her with a bonus action now since I used the cantrip. And because I'm using a halberd, I get additional reach. And you can see, if you take a look at my combat log, you had the weapon itself, so plus 10 from the Great Weapon Master. And again, remember, if you use that potion I talked about to get the 22 strength, it would be a modifier of 6 for your strength instead of 5. You had the cold infusion, it rolls a 1d4 and I got a 3. And you had the force damage from the halberd as well. So 26 damage just from an auto attack right there. So now I could choose to use Action Surge if I wanted. I still have Blade Ward up, so keep that in mind. If I use Action Surge, I could attack again. I am going to run behind this pillar to help line of sight. So now I have Shield. Shield is great. It's a spell you only want to use a rank 1 spell slot because if you read, it says Upcast has no additional benefits. This is going to give me my AC plus 5, meaning they're going to miss. They rolled a 21, my AC is 19, I use that, and now they miss. This is basically how you play the Eldritch Knight in Baldur's Gate 3. Anyway guys, I'm really enjoying this build. It's been really fun to play throughout my Act 2, and it's a build I'm playing with my friends currently. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. I really had a lot of fun making it, and it was the closest thing I could think of what a Witcher might play like in this game.